wasn't expecting this. I petted the mare in the nose and looked her over. It was early 2006, and I was horse shopping. I'd come to this farm to see a nice Trakehner mare that I thought that I might want to buy. But this was not what I expected. Looking back at me was a thin mare, not in good condition, and the look in her eye just looked like she had given up. She also looked older than I expected, and the fact that the papers had been lost sort of sealed the deal for me. She was not the one. She just looked like she was too old and too tired. I thanked the woman for showing her to me, gave her one more pet, and moved on. And as I left, I thought, I'll probably never see that horse again. And honestly, I really didn't know how much longer that horse had.
2006 was a rough year for me. I had recently moved to the state, South Carolina. My mom had passed away, and I was feeling pretty lost. I was in a dark valley, and I needed a way out. I knew a lady who owned horses, and the only connection I had with horses was from college, when I spent a semester riding to get out of gym. So I called her up and I said, "Can I come over and groom your horses?" Certainly a left field idea. She, of course, said yes. There's no horse owner around that wouldn't mind somebody doing that work for him. So we set a date. I went over there and she began to introduce me to all of her horses. This is Fancy, this is Junior, this is Adair. And when she seemed like she was all done, I looked over and I said, "What's that horse over there?" As I started to walk towards. "Oh, don't worry about that one." I ignored her. I got closer. And as I got closer, I began to notice this horse sitting in a muddy field, head down, thin, mud-caked, like she'd just given up. But as I got closer, she picked her head up, long, regal neck, and she locked her ears on me, radar dishes. And as I finally stood up in front of her, their eyes just bored into me. And I said, "What's her name?" Mercedes was a kind of tossed off answer. And I looked up into the eyes of this horse, and she looked at me, and she said, "Get me out of here." I kid you not. I'm a single guy in the suburbs. How am I going to do that? Well, I applied myself. I figured out a way. And finally, many months later, I bought her, and we moved her to a new farm. And from that point on, we began to fill her out, develop her muscles again, and she and I started to compete. And we had a good time. We enjoyed our time, and she taught me so much about the ability to ride. I couldn't believe it. That horse knew more than I would ever know. But finally, it reached a point where age and injury was starting to catch up on her, and I pondered, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And so one day, while I'm standing there with Mercedes, she gets that neck up again, and those ears come out, and those eyes lock onto me, and she says, "Buy me a farm." Well, I can't say no. Yes, my queen. And so I do. And so we take into this next phase, this period where she finally has her own space. But I still wanted to compete, so I had to find a horse myself, and I finally did. And Sterling Silver came in, and we began to train with each other. And Mercedes was unfortunately not getting the same attention at the same time, and I felt bad because her mind and her body both needed to be worked. So one day, somebody said, "I know this woman. She's in between horses. She's very skilled. Why don't you give her a call?" Okay. I took the suggestion up, and I gave this lady a call.
In 2006, I had, during my horse shopping, found another horse and purchased her, and it turned out that that horse had seizures and had to be put down. Between that and some other health issues with my other horses, I decided to give up horses. when a hobby causes more heartache than joy, sometimes it's just time to walk away. And it was that for me. So I had decided I was too old and too tired, and I walked away from horses. But then, about 6 months later, my phone rang. It was somebody I had never even met who wanted me to come exercise his retired horse. Okay, well, that intrigued me. That's no stress. It's just exercising the horse in the pasture. I maybe could do that. So I decided to meet them. And that is how I met Justin and Brigitte. When I went out there, I saw the bay mare in the pasture, the retired horse I was going to ride, and something was vaguely familiar about her, her head and her large ears, but didn't really put my finger on it. So I began riding the horse. And on one of our first rides around the pasture, I asked Justin, "Where did you get her and what is her breed?" When he told me she was a Trakehner mare and told me the farm that she came from, I was amazed. It hit me. This was the horse I had looked at and passed on in 2006. But look at her. She looked beautiful. Her coat shone, her eyes were bright, she had energy. It didn't even look like the same horse. She looked wonderful. And as the days went by, we really bonded with each other. As we would walk around the pasture, we would talk to each other, and I would tell her about things I had done, and I would talk to her about things that I thought that she had probably done too. We were older women, and we had a lot of experiences to compare. I learned a lot from Mercedes. I grew while she talked. And then one day, Justin had an idea. He thought we should go to a horse show. Just one, not a big show, just a local show. But this was after I had sworn off horse shows and thrown away all my show clothing. But he was good. He persisted. He turned it around and made it all about Mercedes. She was sad because she couldn't go to shows anymore. And we needed to do something to help her feel better about herself. So of course it worked. We went to a show, and then another, and then another. They weren't always perfect, but we had good moments. We were happy. We had some good rides, and I learned a lot because Mercedes doesn't suffer poor riding. She will let you know if you are making a mistake. We had a saying that she would rat you out if you were riding her incorrectly, and it was so true. So even though I had originally said we were both too old and too tired to go to shows, we enjoyed going to shows together. I really grew with Mercedes. And then I broke my leg. And it happened to be at the same time that Mercedes injured her shoulder. We were both laid up for 6 months without being able to do a thing. We had to rest. And neither of us knew if riding was going to be in our future again. We definitely did not know if showing was going to be in our future. And as I hobbled along, I felt very old and very tired. I had no idea what was in our future.
Well, winter came along, and there's a show called Trot Around the Trees. And my girlfriend Brigitte wanted to ride and trot around the trees, but she didn't have her horse anymore. Clover had passed away the year before. So she said, I could ride Mercedes. Given Brigitte's experience and Mercedes' experiences, I was a little bit concerned, but I said, sure, we can do that. But I had another idea. I wanted to get the team back. I wanted to have Mercedes and Wynne ride again. And I knew they could do it. But I had to convince Wynne that this was a good thing. And so I set about doing this by basically giving her a call and saying, I think you should be riding a trot around the trees. I don't know. I said, you guys are going to be great, and I need your skill to balance off the inexperience of Brigitte when we're dealing with Mercedes when she's a little happy. So finally, at the end, I was able to convince Wynne, and she and Mercedes were quite excited about going to trot around the trees.
After a long 6 months of rehab, Mercedes, Brigitte, and I had decided to go to this Christmas show. I had to borrow a friend's boots to stuff my broken leg and ankle in the boot because my legs were still swollen. But we did it. Mercedes' shoulder had healed, but that day we gave her a little extra pain medication just to make sure that she didn't limp. The plan was for both Brigitte and I to show. Brigitte would show first, then me. So Brigitte warmed her up in the warm-up ring. Justin and I chatted while Brigitte walked and trotted around the ring. And then something akin to a big black freight train came flying by the rail. We both looked at each other in amazement. Brigitte was cantering around the ring on Mercedes at a very high rate of speed. Well, we looked at each other and said, I guess her shoulder doesn't hurt today after all. Brigitte calmed her down and got her stopped in an expert manner, but decided that today might not be the day for her to show Mercedes. She had a little too much fire. So then it was up to me. Get on and ride. Ride whatever she gives me. So I did. My leg ached, and my right side would not bend, which Mercedes was not happy about, and she told me in no uncertain terms. But I felt a horse under me who was ready to go, ready to fly. And I said to myself, the goal of the day is to make it around the ring without coming off. We were successful in that goal. And as I left the ring, we collected our third place ribbon, and I realized that there may have been a horse that was 26, but on that particular day, she was not old, and she most definitely was not tired.
Old age was starting to catch up to her. Arthritis, which had been just a maintenance issue, was actually now starting to become an issue throughout her body. There came a moment, in fact, when I had to make the decision that she wasn't really safe to ride anymore. Every now and then, I'd watch her canter, I'd watch her trot, and she would definitely be saying, I still got it, son. But you could see the deliberate nature of her body wearing her down. One morning, as I always do, I went out to feed, and I always count the horses, and I saw Sterling and I saw Cider, but I didn't see Mercedes. I heard a noise. I went out to the field, and there was Mercedes lying on the ground. She couldn't get up. It was cold, it was dark, and I felt as helpless as I could ever feel. So I made some calls, wishing that I wouldn't need them, but knowing that I was going to. And for the next 3 hours, I stayed with her as she fought 10 times to try and get up. And finally, on the 10th try, I just said, stop, rest, let it go. Why did she pick me? I've asked that question. She said to me, get me out of here. Why did she pick me? It wasn't for my riding skills. I had no seat. I didn't know what I was doing. What I finally became peace with is that she knew before I knew that I was going to take care of her. She knew before I knew that I was going to give her the ability one more time to shine, to show how proud and how strong and how capable and how beautiful she could be. She knew that. And I was blessed with the opportunity to show the world this horse. The thing about Mercedes was this. If you loved her and you respected her, she gave you her heart. Otherwise, go away. There are many horses in this world. Few can inspire. Few can change people's lives. In this regard, Mercedes excelled.
Mercedes was my best teacher, and she always knew more than me. When I said, "I'm never going to see you again," she said, "Oh, yes, you will." When I said, "We're too old and too tired to show," she said, "Oh, no, we're not." When I said, "We're just too old for this, I'm not going to ride horses again," she said emphatically, "Oh, yes, we are." She was the best teacher I've ever had.
And thank you for letting us share her with all of you. Thank you.